And then I didn't even say anything about your sexy shoulders.
What? That was inappropriate. That was inappropriate.
Oh, hello.
Edit.
It is I. It is I, Scotty.
And Sarah.
And Sarah.
Not the great and powerful Oz.
Not the great and powerful Oz. No. But we are here again for episode 6. Episode 6 of Don't
Screw Up Your Relationship.
Screw Up Your Relationship. By two people that are not relationship experts. But we have screwed up relationships and we have...
And screwed over in relationships.
That is correct. So, in episode 6, as we continue on, we're posting now. We did not post one the other week, so I actually got people asking if did they miss one, but we were unable to post one that week. And we did not screw up our relationship. That is not the reason why we were not on. But we're back.
No, I'm fighting a cold.
Yes, she's fighting a cold. And she's cold because of her sexy shoulders.
Oh, Lord. Would you stop?
So, but today we thought maybe one more time we would hit this topic of trauma brain.
Since May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes, it is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say it's my birthday month.
That too.
But Mental Health Awareness Month is much more important than that.
Depends on who you ask.
Well, that's true. Yeah. My mother, maybe, when she was living, how important that was. Because she had me in May, and she probably needed strength in her mental health dealing with me, for sure.
Stop.
Definitely my two sisters.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now that's probably true.
Yes, that's true. But trauma brain, not talking about brain injuries,
right.
but also talking about how something can happen in your life, affect you as you carry it over into relationships, another relationship, or how it can affect you just in your day-to-day relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about patience, especially in a relationship setting where you have to have patience with your partner if they are going through some type of trauma brain issue. And you are having patience with them, but then as we talked about, when your partner is giving you patience, you don't want to take advantage of that.
Right.
You want to be working on yourself.
Right.
In that time. So, what do you think is what's one of the biggest things? Because so I'm going to say you have trauma brain, and so what has helped you? But the fact of the matter is, we both have trauma brain.
Right. Right.
And just about if somebody says, "Well, tell me." Who has trauma brain? It probably is easier to say count the people that don't have it.
Right. Right.
Because just about everybody has it. It's like a dysfunctional family.
Right.
Show me somebody that's not dysfunctional.
Mine.
Well.
Sorry.
That all depends on who you ask.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
But what do you think? So, as people with trauma brain,
mm-hmm.
What is, if you had to say the one or two
mm-hmm. biggest
things that has helped you personally?
Do you mean in the relationship, or do you just mean in my day-to-day?
So let's talk about day-to-day.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the biggest thing that's helped me is recognizing when I can recognize when there's going to be a trigger, or the different things that I've learned as far as like coping mechanisms to deal with the I don't want to call it an episode. It's not an episode. It's it's just a trigger. If something happens and it triggers me, then the biggest thing that I've found to help me is just to stop and remember to try to hold on to as much logic as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens so often, I think, is your trauma tries to speak for you, and I've talked a little bit about this already. Is when the trauma tries to speak for you, and it's more powerful than the logic. I think we were talking about the other night how men tend to hang on to that logical side of their brain, whereas women, we tend to let the trauma speak for us. And that again goes back to that fight or flight. Am I going to fight through this, or am I just going to run away? Mm-hmm. And run away can look like a number of things. It can look like shutting down emotionally. It can look like shutting down physically. It can look like actual running away. I know I've come across a lot of women who turn to extreme exercise, and I mean extreme exercise. We're not talking about just like, let me go to the gym and let me try to figure this out. No, we're talking really extreme periods of that can be harmful to yourself. And I think that coping mechanisms are good as long as they are healthy coping mechanisms. I think that if you can find something to ground yourself in those extreme moments where you're like, trauma is really speaking for me right now. Mm-hmm. There isn't anything that I can logically hold on to that's going to ground me. Then you have to find another way to ground yourself. If you cannot find any logic, you know what is happening is not reality, but you can't ground yourself. That's when you have to turn to something else or someone else. I used to have panic attacks, and the only person that could calm me would be my mother. I would have to call my mom. And I didn't have to go into great detail about what was causing the panic attack, but my mom has always been my grounding. She's always been the one that's like, okay, so what happened? Where were you? Help me retrace your steps. Let's see if we can just breathe and just calm down. So she has always been my grounding.
That's a good point. I think that you have to get outside of yourself. It's sort of like if you have an argument with somebody, and I've been in bad relationships, you've been in bad relationships. If you're arguing with somebody constantly in the house,
right?
There's something about get outside the house,
right? Yeah.
Because when you get outside, you get a different perspective.
Yeah, it changes your perspective.
Yeah, definitely changes it changes the environment, it changes the energy, it changes the perspective. And so you really do have to get outside of that little square, that little box that you're into. Trauma can then manifest itself. You were talking about panic attacks, in ways of panic attacks, extreme anger, depression. And, depression is when your feelings are turned inward. You don't really deal with your feelings. You just let your feelings deal with you. And depression then causes you to stay inward and closes you up inside the box. And trauma brain can most definitely do that. And so you have to be able to reach out for help. If you cannot reach out for help to your partner, then you have another question you have to ask yourself. Because if you say, well, have you talked to your husband, your wife, your partner about this? And they go, oh, Lord, no, they're part of the reason why I have it.
Right.
Now you have a totally different conversation that you need to be having with them, and especially with yourself. But I think that you have to be able to ground yourself and rationality has to play a part in it.
And you have to have enough respect for yourself and for your relationship that if for some reason you do get triggered, and it happens, of course, and sometimes, like I talked about before, sometimes you can see the trigger coming and you can sort of head it off at the pass so it's not so bad. And but there are other times when you can't see the trigger coming. It just happens, and now all of a sudden you're thrust into a situation where you know that maybe your partner is the trigger, but they're not meaning to be the trigger. They're not doing anything malicious. They're not trying to be hurtful. It just happens in a series of events that gets out of control, and then all of a sudden you're in the middle of a trauma brain incident. And you have to have enough respect for yourself and for your partner to not let trauma speak for you. You have to find your words somehow that are not involved with trauma. If you have to leave the room for a few minutes so you can get your grounding, so you can calm down, so some part of logic can get in there and say, look, we are experiencing something that is a trigger for us. We are going through an episode of reaction that we need to calm down before we go to our partner who has been holding space for us and who allows us to work through the feelings. Because if you go to your partner and you allow your trauma to speak for you, you're going to go in guns a-blazing and do way more damage than if you had just taken a moment.
You go scorched earth.
Yes, you go scorched earth, and it's bad. That's a heck of a thing to have to clean up afterwards.
Yeah. No holds barred.
Right.
Everybody's going down.
You're going Yosemite Sam, and that's not acceptable.
Yeah. You rootin' tootin' varmints.
Rackin' frackin' varmints.
Frackin' varmints around here.
Full Yosemite Sam.
Full Yosemite Sam.
I'm dating myself.
For sure. Yosemite Sam, yes. I knew I should have took that left turn in Albuquerque. So, trauma brain is something that is real, and hopefully over the last few times that you've seen this, we've been able to give you some things to, if not give you a solution, at least put you on the road to a solution. Maybe some things to think about. Whenever you get ready to change your life, I have a person that contacts me oftentimes, listens to my messages, and will message me and say they are a self-proclaimed atheist, and they will say, I always think about what you say in regards to God, and I say to them, keep thinking about it, because as you think about it, these things are going to come true. In the Old Testament Jewish writing says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So the things that you think about will begin to manifest themselves eventually in your life. And so trauma brain is real. It's something that people are dealing with. We deal with it. And problems are either erased or they're managed. And I would love to tell you that we both have solved our trauma brain issues, but I can't say they've erased, but we've become much better managers of that. Perfect, not by any stretch of the imagination, but from where it was, it's a lot better. Yeah. And you can do that as well. And so that's, really what we want to say is that there is hope.
Absolutely.
For trauma brain. And,
You slowed that way down.
For those of you with trauma brain, we welcome you to the club. Anything else you want to say in the last 30 seconds? No?
I don't think so. I mean, you put me on the spot. That was weird. Don't do that.
So we thank you very much. This is episode 6 of Don't Screw Up Your Relationship. As always, we will look for you in the next episode. And we may talk some more about trauma brain. We may jump into some other issues. But until then, fist bump.